Are tampons toxic? What does the latest research say about this very popular menstrual hygiene product? And should you throw away your tampons forever? That's what we're going to discuss today. We're going to kick off by covering this recent study from Berkeley that came out that everyone's talking about, and a lot of women who use tampons, which I think the research says that up to 90% of women who have periods use tampons. So a lot of women are kind of freaking out. Should you throw them away forever? And then after we talk about that, we're going to get into this video from a content creator who talks about the problem of men saying they want traditional women, and then women step up and they say, okay, well then are you going to pay for everything? And then they respond and they say, oh, well, you're a gold digger. So we'll talk about that whole conversation. Who's right? Is there a side to pick? And then we'll finish off with a little topic that I didn't have time to cover last time, which is all of these very popular TikTokers who are showing meal prepping for their families and sending this message that middle class and lower middle class families can't afford to eat healthy. And it's insulting to say that you can. So welcome to The Shift with Gina. This is a show where we talk about all sorts of women's cultural issues, especially related to how to build healthy, whole women for stronger families and a thriving society. So let's talk about this toxic tampon topic. That's hard to say fast. Toxic tampon topic. Let's look at this Berkeley study first of all, because this is what kind of broke the news and pulled the lid off of the conversation so we could finally talk about whether tampons are actually toxic. So this study comes from a journal called Environment International. It just was released. It says August 2024. So it's kind of funny, but it was just released in the last week or two. And it says tampons as a source of exposure to metalloids. Lloyd is in parentheses. It says highlights 16 metalloids were evaluated in different kinds of tampons. Several toxic metals, including lead, were detected. Tampon use is a potential source of exposure to metals in menstruating people. In women, you can just say women, but of course they have to use this woke language because heaven forbid they offend men who think they're women. The highest concentration was found for zinc. A geometric mean lead concentration of 120 Ng/G was found in our samples. So background, between 52 to 86% of people who menstruate in the United States use tampons, cotton and or rayon viscose plugs to absorb menstrual blood in the vagina. And then it goes on to talk about the methods, the results, and they found measurable concentrations of all 16 metals assessed. We detected concentrations of several toxic metals, including elevated mean concentrations of lead, cadmium, and arsenic. Metal concentrations differed by region of tampon purchase, U.S. versus European Union/United Kingdom, by organic versus non-organic material, and for store versus name brand tampons. Most metals differed by organic status. Lead concentrations were higher in non-organic tampons, while arsenic was higher in organic tampons. No category had consistently lower concentrations of all or most metals. So what does this mean? This means that lead was found in all 58 of the tampon brands they tested. Literally every single tampon brand that they tested, they found lead and heavy metals in it. This is not surprising to me at all. I don't think it's surprising to anyone who lives a sort of what would be called an alternative health lifestyle. We've been talking about this for a long time. And of course, many women have been gaslit about this topic. Whenever we bring up this question to doctors or researchers or scientists, they say that we're just conspiracy theorists and all of the words that they throw at us for anything we talk about in relation to fertility, the birth control pill, menstrual cycles, etc. But now the research is matching what we have always asked and what many of us have always assumed. I'm going to show you this little TikTok here. This creator is going over all of the period products, the popular period product brands. 4.8 million people saw this video. That's how many views it got on TikTok. And this was put next to the new Berkeley School of Public Health study. And so women are talking about all of the metals found in tampon brands. So let's take a look at this.
Okay, here's the question. Is anything sacred? Is anything safe? No. No. Hard pass. This is compared to L, which has a current lawsuit against it.
That's
L,
an organic
which is owned by
cotton tampon.
Procter & Gamble. The Berkeley study showed heavy metals in Playtex and Tampax and store brands comparing to Playtex and Tampax. It doesn't tell us specifically every single brand that was in that study, but we do know Cora, we know Lola.
Also organic cotton.
Honey Pot, though there's been a little
cotton.
Controversy around one of their ingredient changes. OB is another hard pass, so is Kotex. Again, even if you're going for pads instead of tampons, Elle has a current lawsuit out against it. Always is the same as Tampax. It's owned by P&G. Carefree is owned by Johnson & Johnson. If you're not already, follow Cancel This Clothing Company, and this is the list of family founder-owned brands. Now, this does not correlate necessarily with the new study that came out saying which ones had heavy metals in them, but this is a good place to start because they care more about taking care of their customers than the ones that are owned by the Big Ten.
Okay, so for those of you who are just listening to the audio, I'll read these brand names out to you. NatraCare, Cora, August, the Honey, I don't know, like her head's in the way, Rael, Lola, and I think it says the Flex company, the Flex something. These are the brands that she just said are a little bit more reliable than the big name brands like Playtex and Always. I honestly don't know many of the name brands because I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I haven't used a tampon in almost 15 years, and I'll tell you what I use instead. But let's see if she has anything else good to say here.
My store doesn't have all of the options that were available on that one, so for me, it's Honey Pot, Cora, or Lola. And if you want to switch from tampons because of the uncertainty, you can always go with a cup if that's something that you want to try or that you have tried before and think you can handle. I actually didn't think to say that.
Okay, so that's enough. And, you know, a lot of women are kind of freaking out. They're like, oh my gosh, should I just totally throw away my tampons? Like, for example, one girl commented on this and she said, well, time to replace my shit. And another woman said, this study is so damning to read through. All samples had the presence of toxic metals that have adverse effects at any level of exposure, and absorbability into the body is extremely efficient via tampons. So Dr. Jolene Brighton, who is a naturopathic doctor, she wrote the book Beyond the Pill. I think she has a new book that just came out, and I think it's called Is This Normal? But she's a really great source of talking about hormonal health, what's normal for your menstrual cycle. She talks a lot about fertility. And she posted this series of tweets on her Instagram as well as a carousel. And in the first line says, the first time heavy metals were studied in tampons, 2024, which we can pause there. And that in and of itself is insane. How many years have tampons been on the market? How many millions of women have used tampons? How many billions of tampons have been used over the last however many decades? And they just now decided to do a couple of studies and do some research on the safety of tampons. And also, she didn't mention this in her carousel, but the first time that tampons were actually tested in blood and not water was 2023. It's just wild. But Dr. Brighton is going to say a little bit more about this. So let's just go through what she says. She says, unsurprisingly, they found heavy metals in organic and non-organic brands. It's not a surprise because soil and water are contaminated with these metals. So should we freak out? First, I think we should acknowledge that women have had concerns about the safety of tampons for a very long time. They have been asking for studies to reassure them, and we've got a big problem with women's health and the industries that serve them not being prioritized in research. She brings up a great point here because it does not do these companies any good to uncover the truth of what these products do to women's bodies. Why? Because what's the whole objective of these companies? They want to make money, and they want to make as much money as possible no matter what. This is why I disagree with a lot of people on the right who are so against any government regulation when it comes to these greedy corporations. They think it's this very conservative stance, or like small government, low regulation. I'm like, yeah, how about no? How about the most important thing, more important than allowing these greedy corporations to get richer and richer and richer? It's much more important to look out for the safety and the health of your citizens. Remember, the government's job is not only to protect your God-given rights, and many people on the conservative side, and I used to be one of them, you can probably dig up some of my old content where I said the only role of the government is to protect your God-given rights. But over the years, and especially as I have read much more conservative philosophy, that is not the only function of the government. The function of the government is also to promote the good and to encourage a healthy, moral, thriving society. And that includes a lot of different things. And because we're talking about the topic of women's health today, it should also include making some legislation and doing some regulation of these greedy corporations to make sure that they are not pushing extremely unhealthy products on women, especially without us knowing that they're unhealthy and that they're going to affect our health and our fertility. Yeah, sure, we can talk about men's products too, but that's not what I talk about here. We're talking about women's stuff. So Dr. Brighton has a great point here. We do have a big problem with a lot of these products that are sold to women. We don't know the extent to which they really affect us. So she continues. Second, we don't know how much of these metals are actually making their way into our system. However, we do know the vagina is a highly absorbent tissue, and we know these metals do cause harm. One of the researchers that conducted the study stated that she is using a menstrual cup, which in theory should be safer because it's made of medical grade silicone. When someone involved in the research is opting out of tampons, it gives me pause, she says. Next slide here. What I have observed in my lifetime, and I'm sure you have too, is that there will be critics who will say, we don't have enough evidence, so keep on with your tampons. And later we find out there is significant harm. I'm not saying this will be the case for certain here, but this pattern of medicine apologizing in retrospect instead of being proactively cautious from the jump has caused harm to women. And I want to pause right there because what I want to do is bring up something in the past that is very similar to this. So there is this Johnson & Johnson baby powder debacle where, let's pull it up here. Study links talc use to ovarian cancer, a potential boon for thousands suing Johnson & Johnson. So the very, very popular company Johnson & Johnson has argued in court that studies haven't found a convincing link between ovarian cancer and talc powder. A new analysis suggests they are indeed associated. And now there are more than 50,000 lawsuits against Johnson & Johnson that allege its talc-based baby powder caused ovarian cancer. But this company said over and over again, very similar to what Dr. Brighton is saying about the past conversation of tampons. They say, there's no evidence saying it's bad for you. Just keep on using it. Don't be scared by the conspiracy theorist. There's no science-based evidence. And what they fail to say, and they don't want women to know this, is that just because there hasn't been any research done doesn't mean that it's not true. In fact, remember, a lot of these corporations, they block research from being done about their products. So now you've got more than 50,000 lawsuits against Johnson & Johnson because a lot of people, women, are realizing they have ovarian cancer that seems very strongly to be coming from the baby powder that doctors, experts, and companies like Johnson & Johnson told them to use because it's perfectly safe. Okay, so this is just yet another example of what Dr. Brighton is talking about here. So in her next slide, she says, considering as many as 80% of us with periods are using tampons monthly for hours on end, and we are using anywhere from 7,000 to 9,000 tampons in our lifetime, we need to understand the potential impact to our health. Number one, she said, consider making the switch to a cup or a disc. Number two, demand more research. Number three, and I like this one, don't panic about the past. Don't judge yourself for the decisions you had to make without all the information. These things are unhelpful and are bad for your health. So I want to start by talking about her number one piece of advice here. Consider making the switch. I have not used a tampon for maybe 15, 16 years. I switched to a menstrual cup a long time ago. I think I was still a teenager. I forgot who first introduced it to me, but it was something that it just made sense to me intuitively. I said, I don't trust these tampons. Number one, I don't trust them. I don't really like, because back then there wasn't really many options for organic tampons. And so you looked at the box and these products just didn't seem safe to me. And secondly, it seems like a lot less waste to use a menstrual cup. The medical grade silicone is shown to be much safer on the body, inside the body for women. And you need one menstrual cup and it can last for years. You know, I've had cups last for a few years and then you replace them. And I got to say, like I said earlier, I don't even know a lot of these tampon brands. So when these girls are naming off like all of these potential options, I've never really heard of these because I have not used tampons in years. I love the cup. It was one of the best decisions I ever made for myself and my menstrual cycle. I found there's a little bit of a learning curve and you have to get a little bit more intimate with yourself. For those of you who don't know what a menstrual cup is, it's a silicone cup. You have to kind of prop it up in there, and then it expands and then it catches all the liquid. You take the cup out, you dump it, you wash it, and you reuse it. And in between each cycle, in between each month, you boil the cup in boiling water for 5 to 10 minutes to like really sterilize it in between each use. right? So it's a very easy thing to use, much better for the environment. And like I said, for me, intuitively, it just made sense because it was a lot safer. And I think a lot of women are finally coming around to it. Back then, when I decided to switch to a cup, my girlfriends were like, what is that? I've never even heard of a menstrual cup. That sounds disgusting. That sounds unsafe, because it was a totally foreign concept to them. And I'm really happy that today we have more and more women who are opening up to the idea of using a cup. The very first brand I ever used was Diva Cup. I forgot the name of the brand that I use now. I mean, when you're going through pregnancy and postpartum, you feel like you go so long without having a period. With my first, I didn't have a period for almost 2 years because got pregnant, obviously no period for 9 months. And then I didn't get my cycle back until my daughter was basically a year old. And I haven't had a period for about another year because, was pregnant, postpartum phase now. I don't know when my cycle's going to come back, but in the last couple of years, I really haven't had my period for that long. So it feels like a long time since I've even used my cup. But I would encourage a lot of you ladies who are listening, if you are even slightly nervous about the tampon brands that you use, and I think for good cause, for good reason, it's okay to be a little bit nervous. Just like Dr. Brighton said, you don't need to freak out and cause yourself more stress. The past is the past. If you used tampons for years, even if you used Always or Tampax, whatever the general popular brands are, it's okay. What's done is done. You can just do your best to detox your body, eat a healthy diet, live a healthy lifestyle, and just choose better moving forward. Building up that stress and anxiety in your body over your past decisions is not good for you. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your future. So it's done. Let it go. We can just make better choices as we gather more information. And like she said, demand more research. I think a lot of these companies are realizing that women are speaking up, and for better or worse, the internet is a place where everyone has a voice, and you can be very loud on the internet, especially if you do it in mass amounts. So the more that we push these companies, the more that we threaten them in a way online, the more that we can create a loud, but what's the word I'm looking for? A loud mob, but one that's effective. There are good mobs and bad mobs, and we can create a good mob to really pressure these companies into giving us more information about their products and into conducting some research about their products. Because we don't exactly know how much these heavy metals are going to affect us. However, just like she said, women they could use up to 10,000 tampons in their lifetime. That's a lot of exposure to heavy metals inside your body. Of course, that can affect your fertility, and of course, it can affect your everyday health. And we have to think about that. So it is kind of upsetting when you think about it, because this conversation reminds me so much of things like the birth control pill. We've been gaslit for so long. How many times have women said, hey, this is an effect of the birth control pill. Like, it makes me feel depressed. It makes me feel suicidal. Pretty sure it's making me infertile. I think it's also making me attracted to different types of men. And doctors and experts and researchers would say, you're crazy. This is all in your head. This is a conspiracy theory. And then lo and behold, as time goes on, the research comes out in support of all of these accounts from women. And women are vindicated. Once again, we're right. And all the doctors used to tell us that we're crazy. Shut up. This is all in your head. There's no research to support that. They were very condescending. I mean, I'm sure that many of you who are listening have had those experiences at the doctor's office where the medical provider was condescending to you, looked down on you, made you feel like you're dumb for even asking questions about how, for example, the birth control pill can affect your fertility. And now more and more research is coming out that, hey, the pill actually does cause suicidal ideations and depression and anxiety in women. It actually does tear apart your gut lining, and it does cause a lot of gut issues. And it can lead to infertility. A lot of the research coming out. We even now have research showing us that the birth control pill does, in fact, make you attracted to feminine men. And so we're right once again. And as all this stuff comes out about tampons, here we are. I'm not surprised. I don't want to say I told you so, but I will say I told you so. Many of us told you so. And I'm not saying this to women who didn't know about tampons. I say this more to a lot of these, quote, experts and medical providers and doctors who didn't listen to us and told us that we're crazy. So if you still have your menstrual cycle, if you have a period, I would strongly encourage a cup. Now, I know some people, they say that a menstrual cup just doesn't work for them. If it just doesn't work for you, if you have really tried, Dr. Brighton says you can switch to a disc. I don't know anything about a disc, so maybe I'll look it up. I could look it up a little bit for you, but you're going to have to do some research on that yourself, because she also said in the caption of her post, not everybody can use a menstrual cup. Not sure why. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure that there are some people out there who just can't use it. But if you can, try it. And like I said, it does take a little bit of learning, and it's not as comfortable. Not physically comfortable. I mean, just like you have to get intimate with yourself, and you're going to have to see some blood in the beginning. And, you know, when you're still new with it, you may spill a little on your hands, and you're just going to have to get more intimate with yourself. But there's nothing about it that's more physically uncomfortable when it's actually put in place versus a tampon. That's all I'll say on that. I don't think we need to go into that anymore. So I think it's a great thing that so many women are realizing that tampons can be a bad choice. There are some women who have switched to pads recently, but like that girl said in her TikTok, a lot of the companies and brands that put out pads, they're just as bad. They still do have these heavy metals in them. And yes, those are not going inside of your body, but they're still adjacent to your private parts. And so your body could absolutely absorb them. Just some things to think about. And I know that when young women hear this kind of stuff, and young women maybe in their 20s, early 20s that have no plans on having kids anytime soon, I know it's easy for you to hear this and be like, I don't think it's going to affect my fertility. I want to have kids in like 10 years. So what's the point in freaking out about it? Everything you do today affects your fertility tomorrow, in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. I just always encourage young women, even if you don't have plans to get pregnant like tomorrow or even next year or in 5 years, it's still a good thing to prioritize your fertility and your health, because when you prioritize having optimal fertility, you end up with a great level of holistic health. You're going to feel your best. You're going to look your best, because of course your fertility is connected to everything else in your body, connected to your hormones, connected to even your immune system, your cardiovascular health, everything, your sleep, your sex drive. So it is a good thing to eliminate those little things here and there in your life that you know can cause some toxins in your system, whether it's getting rid of tap water, stop drinking tap water, drink filtered water, reverse osmosis, remineralized water, get rid of the toxic tampons, try to wear less polyester as much as you can. You know, little things here and there. So even if you're 21 and you don't want to get pregnant anytime soon, it's still a good idea to take care of your health. So if you guys want to hear anything else about tampons or menstrual hygiene products, let me know. But I remember very clearly when I first started using the cup, people thought I was crazy because they'd never heard of it before. They were like, what is that? That sounds disgusting. That was actually the most common feedback I got from girlfriends. They were like, that sounds gross. You mean you have to empty out the cup of your blood? I'm like, yeah, it's from your body. It's not like it's anybody else's, you know? And to them, tampons seemed a lot cleaner because you just pull it out. There's no like liquid that you have to deal with, right? Because it's been absorbed. But it's been the best decision I ever made for my menstrual cycle. One of the best. But that's also one of the pros of pregnancy, is that you don't have to deal with your period for a long time. And it's like natural birth control too, because you don't ovulate, obviously, when you don't have your cycle at all. And this kind of reminds me of one of the most popular questions I got when I was discussing this infertility epidemic that's kind of only affecting one type of demographic over the other. Somebody posed a question on X. They said, why is it that so many of the women I see who are struggling with infertility are like middle to upper middle class? They seem to be like pretty healthy looking women who are not very overweight. Like, why are they struggling with infertility? But people in the lower socioeconomic statuses are having like so many more kids. They're obviously dealing with less infertility. And then I said, one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is because people in these lower socioeconomic statuses are starting to have kids earlier. And it's much easier to have a kid at 35 or 37 if you've already had a kid in your 20s. And one of the reasons there's a lot more reasons for this too, but I'll just get into this quickly because people were like, why is that? That doesn't make any sense. Why would it be easier to have a kid at 37 if you already had one earlier, or you already had a few earlier? When you get pregnant and when you're in the pregnancy and postpartum phase, you obviously don't have a cycle, which means there are no eggs being released, which means that you're not wasting eggs being released that aren't fertilized. Your body is still holding on to these eggs because they're not releasing the eggs to be fertilized every month. And this goes on for like up to 2 years with every child you have. So if you have like 3 kids in your 20s, that's 6 years that you're not having a menstrual cycle approximately. You know, some women get their cycle back within 3 to 5 months. Some don't get it back later, especially if you're breastfeeding exclusively in the child's first year. It takes a lot longer for the cycle to come back. So that means your body is like essentially storing those eggs and not releasing them to be fertilized. So when you get to the age of 35 to 37, your body has more healthy eggs saved up versus if you are 35, 36, 37 years old and you've never had any children, your body's been releasing those eggs every month. And remember, obviously, women have a finite number of eggs. Men have like hundreds of millions of sperm cells. They could procreate until a much older age than we can. Not to say that they're going to be able to procreate forever and ever, but they can procreate for longer than we can. And so it does matter what age you are that you start having kids. That's going to affect how late you can have kids into your 30s. I digress. That was a little bit of a tangent. Let's talk now about men wanting traditional women. But first, let's hear a word from our sponsor. Ladies, did you know that if you have a menstrual cycle, you should be taking a prenatal multivitamin every day? Not only if you are trying to get pregnant or if you're pregnant or nursing. The prenatal multivitamin is great for women in their childbearing years, regardless of your pregnancy plan. So if you have a menstrual cycle, you should be taking a prenatal multivitamin every day. There are so many nutrients in here that are important for healthy hormones, a healthy menstrual cycle, a period that's much more manageable. It'll help reduce your menstrual cramps and PMS symptoms. And there's so many things in here that your body needs if you still have a menstrual cycle. And it's especially important to find a prenatal that has folate instead of folic acid. And it's actually kind of hard to find. There's so many prenatals out there that use folic acid, which is the synthetic form of folate that's not bioavailable to the body. So I highly recommend the First Form Prenatal Multivitamin. I've been taking this for 5 years, long before my first pregnancy. And it's a fantastic product. It gives you so much energy in the morning. It really helps to regulate your mood and your menstrual cycle. So I highly recommend it. Please use my affiliate link in the description in the show notes. Just click on that, make your first purchase. This company is also fantastic. They're very pro-America and patriotic, so it's a win-win. You know you're supporting a company that has the same values as you, and they have excellent customer service. So if you need to make a return, it's 100% money, 110% money back guarantee. And let me know if you guys have any questions about the products. Okay, here's a video from Emily Saves America. She's a very popular content creator. She's conservative. She's very pretty. There are a lot of things she says that I, of course, absolutely agree with. And there's some stuff that I'm not on board with, but you know, that's the way it is. But I like her overall. Here's a video where she's talking about, this is the caption. She says, women wanting men to have money and provide for them is not being a gold digger. Sorry, brokies. So let's hear what she has to say. Someone sent me this video and they asked me to discuss it because I do think it's an important topic, especially for women who aren't married yet. And they're confused about why men are mad about the fact that the women want the man to provide. So here's what she says.
Men are like, we want a traditional woman. We want a woman at home, taking care of me, taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, doing all this. And women are like, have done the feminism. They've done the 9 to 5. They're all broke. They're unhappy. They're like, why are we working so hard? This sucks. And then they're like, okay, we accept your terms. And then men are like, okay. And then we're like, okay, so that's going to take a lot of money to have this life. So are you going to be a provider full time? Are you going to give me and the children the lives that we want? And then as soon as women turn it on men and accept, men are like, oh my gosh, you're just all gold diggers. And then it's like, so what do you want from us? There's no winning. Yeah, we do want to be at home with the kids. And yeah, if we do that, you have to provide, sweetheart.
Yeah, she brings up some good points here. And I just want to say, I can see both sides. I can see both sides of not this argument. It's not necessarily an argument, but this scenario. Because on one hand, she's right. If men want traditional women to stay home with the kids and to not work, then generally they're going to have to be able to provide enough so that the woman can stay home with the kids so that she can cook for them, clean the house, educate the kids, raise them while the husband's at work. And so, yeah, in a sense, there is a sort of expectation. If you want that lifestyle, there is that sort of expectation that the man is going to have to bring in enough finances and provide financially for the family. But then she's saying the response to that is men a lot of times will be like, oh, you're such a gold digger. You're so materialistic. And in a way, again, I can understand their response too, because remember, as we've talked about many times before, there is has been a rise of the red pill manosphere narrative that in a way comes from a very real place. The red pill conversation uncovers a lot of holes in the legal system currently that shows what a gynocentric society we live in, which means it just heavily favors women. So a woman can be married to a man for 10 years and through no fault of his own, even, not saying that every single divorce is no fault of the man's, but in many cases it can be. The woman just thinks she outgrows him, thinks she deserves better emotionally, takes him to court and takes everything he has just because they were married and she's a mother of their children. And so this is a very real thing happening to men. And a lot of men online are talking about this. And so they caution young men from either getting married at all or from getting married to women who could potentially do this to them and take everything they've got. So in a way, I do kind of understand men's trepidation when it comes to marrying women and providing for them and giving them everything, because it can be a risky thing for them. And I don't think it's healthy to completely gaslight the men and say, oh, it's all in your head. It's never like that. Women aren't going to do that to you. It does happen a lot. And unfortunately, because the court system favors the women end up getting full custody. They end up getting like pretty much everything. They clean out the men for everything they've got, which is why, like, I know a couple of men personally, one in my family, my extended family, he would divorce his wife if he could, but he knows that if he divorces her, she's going to take everything that he's got, and he's not only is he going to see his kids less, but he's going to like work his ass off to just keep paying for her, the alimony and the child support and all that. So it can be tough. I get that for men. So in a way, you kind of have to understand that men are hurt over the fact that they've seen so many women, or it's happened to themselves, that have just taken advantage of the husband and his finances. Because there's one little phrase she says in here. She says something about, you're going to provide the life that I want for my kids. I think a big problem is that a lot of these modern women who do kind of want that traditional lifestyle, they are turning away from feminism. Like she said, a lot of young women are done with feminism. They're done with the girl boss. They're done with that whole boss babe lifestyle, climbing the corporate ladder, trying to be like men, trying to sort of live that Sex in the City lifestyle that was presented to us in the early 2000s. A lot of women are done with that. They do want something more feminine, something more family focused. However, a lot of these modern women expect the men to provide a materially luxurious lifestyle of family. So a lot of these women are not willing to have costs cut, have some corners cut, maybe live with a little bit less materialistically in order for them to stay home and raise the kids. And I think that's what the men are kind of saying here, is that, well, we do want to provide for you, but a lot of young women, they expect like a luxurious lifestyle where you still get your own car, you still get a really nice house, you get all the new clothes, you still get vacations, you get all the nice things, but you still get to stay home, and you just expect the man to be rich enough to not only pay for everything, pay for the whole family, but also to provide you with like a materialistically nice and luxurious lifestyle. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not saying that women should just marry broke men just for the sake of it. But the fact of the matter is, if your priority is to be able to stay home with your kids and for your husband to work, you may have to come to terms with the fact that, especially in the early years of your marriage and maybe the early years of your kids' lives, you may have to give up some luxuries if you're only going to live on one income, because not everybody is going to land a rich man. Just statistically, it's just not going to happen. There are not enough rich men to marry all of the women who want to stay home with their kids. Like, there's going to be most of us who get married to men who are able to provide a life, but they're not able to provide a luxurious life. And I think this is what many men are saying when they say, oh, you're just a gold digger. You just want us to, like, you know, make this very luxurious lifestyle for you to just stay at home while I bust my ass and work all day. So I think we do have to be a little bit realistic and say, if you're able to marry rich, if you find a rich man who can retire you, let you stay home, raise the kids, and also give you that very nice, luxurious lifestyle, good for you. But realistically, fact of the matter is most women are not going to find that. Most women are going to find the sort of like middle class average salary where you may not be as comfortable. And I know a lot of families, I mean, us too. I know a lot of families, they have multiple kids and the mom doesn't work full time anymore. And they have to give up a lot of things. And it is a sacrifice in order for them to stay home with their kids. And I think that a lot of young women, they get online and they see the trad content, or, you know, the influencers that are labeled trad, even though they never really claim to be trad, like Nara Smith and Ballerina Farm. And they think, oh my gosh, that's what I want. I want to be able to stay home with my babies and wear pretty clothes and wear dresses and frolic in the fields and not have to work. That's what I want. And they kind of get a skewed version of what motherhood and wifehood actually is, when most of the time the reality is it's hard. You're going to have to make sacrifices and you have to be okay with that. You have to be prepared that parenthood of any kind, but especially the kind that's not like extremely wealthy, it's going to involve a level of sacrifice that you kind of have to be prepared for. But I get what she's saying too. So like I said, I can see both sides. She's right in the sense that if a man wants a more traditional structure where the wife doesn't go out of the house to work and she's, you know, her work is mainly at home with the family, with the kids, then he is going to have to find a way to provide, because who else is going to pay for that? We shouldn't expect the government to bankroll that. It's really up to the family and to the husband to bankroll that. So in a way, I see both sides. But unfortunately, this sort of gender war that we see online right now has created such a rift between men and women that one side says one thing and the other side says, yeah, we want that, but X, Y, and Z. So it has become quite a toxic conversation lately about marriage, motherhood, traditional marriages. And it's kind of sad to see because, you know, at the end of the day, you think that we all want the same thing. We want there to be strong families, happy marriages. But because of the oversaturation of content creators, podcast hosts, life coaches, relationship coaches, alpha male coaches, even like the women's dating coaches, there's so much content online now about how to date and how to land the right man, land the right woman. It's just oversaturated. It has put a lot of both men and women on edge when it comes to finding a husband or a wife. And that's why I think one of the best things you can do if you are seriously searching for a husband and a wife and you're having trouble doing that, I think one of the best things you can do is just like turn off the internet for a little while, or at least mute all the accounts that tell you everything you should be demanding in a husband or a wife. I don't think it's really helpful. And I think all of these accounts that tell you what to look for, all the guidelines, never go for a girl that has tattoos or went to college, never go for a guy who takes you to coffee on a first date. Like all these guidelines coming from both genders, I think it can oftentimes poison young people's minds. And I think it completely pollutes the dating experience. And it makes people go into these dating experiences with these unrealistic expectations. And sometimes a lot of us, like older married people, not that we're that much older, but a lot of people who are already married, we look at you guys and we're like, my gosh, I'm so glad that I didn't have to rely on dating apps and this current conversation on dating and men and women, because it would have been really hard. I was telling my husband last week, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I am not like 27 and single anymore, because it's a really hard time to navigate for everybody. But I think both men and women, I don't even think there's one side that's worse than the other. Okay, maybe sometimes the young single woman can be a little bit worse, but it's you know, it's hard for women too. It's just hard for both sides. And I said this, I think, on the previous episode. where I was talking about whether coffee is an appropriate first date, it's partly because we're oversaturated with too much dating advice and demands. I don't think we need to be making this many demands to just get a first date with men and women, with a man or woman. So I'm not saying to lower your expectations. You don't need to, lower your standards. So let me rephrase that. I'm not saying you need to lower your standards, but in some ways, I think you can lower some expectations. There was this viral video I shared on my Instagram. I can't share it here because it's got music and I'll get the copyright strike or whatever. But this woman was talking about how she arrived at that place in her life where she's kind of concerned about finding a life partner, which I hate that term. Can we throw that term away? That's what gay people use, okay? We're not talking about a life partner. You're looking for a husband, sweetie, okay? And men, you're looking for a wife. Can we throw away this like liberal, generalized, sanitized language of life partner? It's so stupid. It's so gay. It's just a husband or a wife. Anyway, she was talking about how she's having so much trouble finding a husband, and she realized that she should never settle and she should only say yes to somebody who loves her as much as she loves herself. And she went on this whole monologue about herself and how she's built up her love for herself. And I said on my Instagram, I said, this is the problem. Way too many women go into dating with this obsession with the self. And they have been taught by our society to love themselves above everything else. Love yourself, prioritize yourself. It's all about self-love, self-acceptance, self-enlightenment, self-discovery, self, me. So they get really disappointed because they can't find any guy who loves them as much as they love themselves. And that's because there will never be anybody who loves you as much as you love yourself, because self-love is something that we are all born with. It's a sickness that we all have. We are all so self-obsessed because we are all human. This is why this teaching women to love themselves, you don't need to be taught that, honey. You came out of the womb loving yourself. You came out of the womb prioritizing your own needs. You don't need help to love yourself. Even this self-exploration thing that you have, the desire to explore yourself and to claim that you have so many insecurities, that all comes from your self-love, the need to go deeper into yourself to find myself. It all comes from this huge self-love that you were born with. And this is one of the reasons, not the only, but one of the reasons why so many women are really struggling to find a husband, because they have been taught to only say yes to a man, only accept a man if he loves you as much as you love yourself. You're never going to find that ever. Sorry, hate to break it to you. I'm not saying that you should accept a man who abuses you or dislikes you or puts you down, okay? Listen to what I'm saying, not to what I'm not saying. Of course, you should not accept that kind of man. But to demand that a man loves you exactly the way that you love yourself and matches the girl said he needs to match my enthusiasm for my life. And I'm just like, no wonder you guys are chronically single and unhappy. Nobody is saying that you need to marry some deadbeat loser who mistreats you and doesn't really think highly of you. Okay, two things can be true at once. You can, still respect yourself and find a guy who's going to respect you, but you can also not expect to find a guy who's going to love you as much as you love yourself. And so I think one of the biggest problems is that women approach dating and marriage from a very selfish place. They think that marriage is something that's supposed to serve them, that it's some sort of self-growth experiment, and it's a way for them to enlighten themselves, to learn more about themselves. And it's all about the self. That's the problem. Marriage is not about that. Marriage is not some personal, selfish matter that is for your own needs and your desires. At the end of the day, and this is a very hard pill for a lot of modern men and women to swallow, marriage is a public matter. Marriage is meant to be a union between a man and a woman so that you can have a strong family that leads to a thriving society. Most of the time that includes children, having children that contribute to society. So marriage is really not about you. That doesn't mean that you have to get married to a person that dislikes you and mistreats you. No, obviously you need to marry someone who respects you and loves you and cares for you. But that marriage is not all about you. Marriage is really more of a place that you go to give rather than to get. And if both people approach marriage that way, it is a very fruitful union. And especially from a Christian perspective, what's the Christian model of a marriage? Jesus and his bridegroom, the church. Jesus laid down his life for the church. And that's how men are expected to lay down their life for their wife. That's a very selfless act. It's a very selfless thing to demand of a man. And then in turn, it's a very selfless thing for a woman to do, which is to submit to the husband. The church submits to Jesus, right? This is what marriage is built off of, the relationship between Christ and the church. So yes, marriage is supposed to be a selfless place. It is a place of hard work, of sacrifice. It doesn't mean you have to totally lose yourself and mistreat yourself in order to have a successful marriage, but you do have to give up some of your own selfish desires and needs. And you know what? That's actually a really big relief. And a lot of women don't realize this, but giving up a lot of your own selfish needs and desires, it actually turns out to be a huge relief. Not having to obsess over yourself all the time. It is such a relief. That's why a lot of women say that motherhood is actually the most fulfilling thing for them. And it's been the best thing for their stress and their anxiety and their sort of the gaping hole of selfishness, like they're all about themselves. Motherhood's a relief because it allows you to put your attention and your care and your love into something much more rewarding and fulfilling and lasting, which is your children. And it's a nice thing not to have to constantly be worried about yourself 24/7 and focusing on yourself, because that is a very exhausting thing because yourself is a bottomless pit. So marriage is not all about somebody treating you a certain way. It's about giving to one another so that you can build something that is bigger than yourself. And that's the thing that women should be focusing on when they approach dating and marriage. Let's finish off with this meal prep video on TikTok that is from a very popular account. Many TikTok accounts are like this now, where women are doing meal prep for their kids, for their family, or they're plating dinner or lunch or breakfast. And the whole conversation is about how lower middle class / middle class families cannot afford to eat healthy. But first, here's a word from our sponsor. Did you know that most diaper companies donate money to abortion funds and support abortion campaigns? That's why I'm so proud to partner with Every Life Diapers. This pro-life company is openly supportive of mothers, children, families, and the right to life. And they have a wonderful product. Both of my kids use these diapers. Not only are they easy to use and they're comfortable, but they're leak-free, so you don't have to worry about those messes in the middle of the night. I have never had a blowout mess since using Every Life Diaper with my newborn baby, which is very, very rare. I love the product, and I also, of course, love supporting Every Life in their mission. It is so rare today to find a company that is openly pro-life and openly supportive of mothers and families. So that's why I'm so proud to be supporting Every Life, and you can support them too while also getting a fantastic product. Use my code 10GINA for 10% off of your first order with Every Life. And even if you're not a mom and if you don't have kids that are in diapers, it makes a great gift. So if you know a mom who's about to have her first child, or you know families that have multiple kids who are in diapers, this makes a fantastic gift. So use my code 10GINA at checkout and support this amazing company that has an amazing product. Okay, let's look at this video. It's 2 minutes, so I'm going to fast forward through some of it. This is a popular mom on TikTok. She very often shows videos of herself making lunch for her husband, packing lunch for him, which is a nice thing to do. And I initially saw this and I'm like, oh, let me watch this, because I pack lunch for my husband every night. And it's so nice when my husband works from home because I don't have to pack lunch for him. But it's something that I genuinely enjoy doing for my husband because I want to keep him healthy and I want his stress levels to be as low as possible. I want him to eat good food, and he's out of the house from like 5:30 in the morning until 6 in the evening because he goes to teach jujitsu first thing in the morning, showers and gets ready and goes straight to work from there. So I pack his breakfast and his lunch and a snack. So I saw this. I'm like, oh, this is so sweet. A woman packing lunch for her husband. But let's take a look at this and then we'll discuss.
Pack hubby's lunch with me.
So 3 sandwiches, white bread. She's putting mayonnaise on all the pieces of bread. And then what she puts on top of it is bologna, like the total fake meat. Like there's no meat in there. Takes out a piece of cheese, pepper jack cheese. Okay, so she's got 3 sandwiches of just bologna and cheese. So far, 0 nutrients there. I guess the cheese can give you a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein. Okay. Next up, a huge bag of Doritos. It gets worse. Nutty Buddy.
Ice packs times 4. Gatorade. H2O.
Okay, so a bottle of water.
Body armor.
What's body armor?
NOS.
No, I'm guessing NOS is an energy drink.
Sammy's times 3.
Okay, so she puts the sandwiches in there.
Doritos to go with said sandwiches.
Okay.
A Go-Gurt.
Go-Gurt, so just sugar.
Fruit of the day.
He gets an apple. It's the first fresh food that she gave him, an apple.
Nutter butter. Napkins and his notes.
That's nice. That's cute.
And there you have it, you guys. Hubby's lunch.
Oh, I can't listen to her voice anymore. Okay. So she has a lot of videos like this. I've seen a few others, and I don't want to be mean. I know there's going to be people in the comment section who are like, you're so mean, you're shaming her, blah, blah, blah. Okay, nobody's shaming anybody. This is objectively an incredibly unhealthy lunch to give to somebody. Like, I wouldn't give that to my dog. This is not to be mean. I wouldn't give that to my dog. And I think that the bar is set so low. I'm not talking even specifically about this family. I'm talking about the bar is just set so low for Americans. Like, we're going to pretend like this is a great thing to do. I get that the gesture is nice. You know, she's constantly packing lunch for her husband, but this is not food. And I have to say, the other videos I saw, they're all the same. It's not food. And this whole account, like, she's shown herself shopping and stuff, and she says that they have to eat this way because they don't have a lot of money. And there's another TikToker that's getting more and more famous. She's dubbed the Donut Mom on TikTok because she's famous for her videos like plate my 1-year-old's breakfast with me. And it's like a powdered donut and a pack of the fruit puree thing that comes in the plastic. And like, that's what she gives to her kids for breakfast. And a lot of these people defend this, and they're like, it's elitist of you and it's classist of you to say that they need to eat healthier because they can't access healthier foods. This is just, it makes me want to slam my head against the wall because these foods are incredibly expensive. Doritos, Nutty Buddies, the little powdered donuts, bologna. Like, this is some of the most expensive food that you can get at the grocery store. It's not even food. It's the most expensive stuff that you can buy at the grocery store. You will never, ever, in any reality, be able to convince me that these foods are cheaper than rice, frozen vegetables, ground beef. You can buy bulk ground beef at Costco. That's cheap. You don't even have to get the organic stuff. Like, when we're talking about healthy stuff, people are like, they don't have access to organic stuff. I'm like, I never said anything about organic. No one's saying anything about organic. You don't have to go to Erewhon or Whole Foods or Sprouts. Nobody's saying that. Go to Costco. You can go to Food Lion. Do they have Piggly Wigglies anymore? I grew up with a Piggly Wiggly. I don't think they have them anymore. Go to Food Lion. Go to any of these cheap grocery stores. You can get healthy food for very cheap. You can go to Walmart. Get some dried beans, rice, cheap ground beef, frozen vegetables. You don't even have to get the organic stuff. The vegetables that are in the freezer section, like, they're frozen at essentially like their peak ripeness. So they retain a lot of the nutrients and vitamins. Get frozen vegetables. We should not accept the argument that people have to eat this way because they are from a certain socioeconomic status. It's complete nonsense. And this is not a dig at any family. This is not to be mean. In fact, this is what it means to be nice and truly compassionate. If you actually care about these families, and if we actually care about the state of our country, we would be honest and speak the truth in love and say, hey, if you continue to eat this way, you are going to meet a premature death, or you're going to live in a lot of chronic pain and chronic illness. And whenever I talk about this topic, there's always the dumb trolls in the comment section. They're like, what do you care what people eat? Why don't you focus on your own life? What is it to you what they eat? Why do you care what someone else eats? You know why? Because I'm a normal, moral human being that cares about the state of our society. I do not want to live in a society that has almost 50% of obese adults. I don't want to live in a society that has a third of obese children. Why? Because I do care about their health. Yeah, I want them to live a healthy, thriving life. I don't want to see people sick. I don't want to see people obese, struggling with heart disease, type 2 diabetes. I don't want them to have a high likelihood to contract cancer or have a stroke or have some sort of autoimmune issue. I don't want that for them. Why? Because I actually care. Those of you virtue signaling online and saying that you should let them eat whatever they want, you're so mean. You're the mean one. Because you would rather make yourself look good online, virtue signal and defend them like some white knight. I'm a good person because I defend people who are obese. I'm such a nice person. You would rather make yourself look good than see people get healthy. And that is mean. That's an actual sickness. But that's really the core of all of this, is that you call us mean, you call us bigots, whatever the terms are that you want to call us. I don't even care. We're the ones that actually care. And yeah, I do care about the state of our society, because the more unhealthy people we have in our culture, the more unhealthy our society is, and the less chance that we have for turning this country around and having a better future. Especially when we talk about the next generation, a third of kids are obese. Obesity has a very big effect on cognitive function. It's got a huge impact on longevity, on academic performance, any professional performance, and how they perform in the job market. Like, you will never be able to convince me otherwise. And there's plenty of research to back it up. You should not encourage or defend these high rates of obesity and chronic illness in this country. We have to be honest. If we have any chance of fixing the future, of creating a better society for our kids and our grandkids, we have to be honest and say this is unhealthy, and it is not the only way forward for people who are struggling financially. There are so many ways to eat healthy on a budget, to eat cheap. And none of it involves these ultra processed foods, these junk foods that are actually very, very expensive at the end of the day. That's all I have to say about that. So never let anybody convince you that poor people have to eat trash junk food. It's actually, that's the bigoted thing to say. It reminds me so much of when people were talking about voting privileges in New York City. They're like, it's so racist to say that you need an ID to vote. The voter ID laws are like, it's really racist against Black people to say that you need a driver's license to vote, because a lot of these Black people don't know how to access their driver's license. And then you saw some guy going around New York City. He's like interviewing all the Black people. He's like, do you have a driver's license? And they're like, yeah, you need one to live in New York City. And ask another person, do you know where the DMV is? They're like, yeah, it's right over there. They give the cross streets. It's just so insulting. It's always the white liberals. And they interviewed all the kids on the college campus, and they're like, it's really racist and to say that Black people should have a voter ID because they don't have access to it. They don't know how to work the internet. There was actually a girl on a college campus who said Black people don't know how to use the internet. And so voter ID laws are racist. It's the same thing to me. It's bigoted to say that because people are poor, they're too dumb to know what's healthy. Because people are poor, they don't know where to find food that's healthy. It is so insulting. It is deeply insulting. Like, I did not come from a rich family. Like, my family was like lower middle class and then middle class. And we didn't have a lot of money. My mom always fed us healthy food. She always found a way. Always. And I know plenty of families who are the same. Like, they live on a serious budget with multiple kids and they eat healthy. It is insulting to people of certain socioeconomic statuses to claim that you must be wealthy to eat healthy. So no, never accept that argument. Eat well, guys. Take care of yourselves. That's all I have. If there are topics that you want to hear, I have been very appreciative recently of all of you guys sending me different things to talk about, because it gives me ideas And sometimes if I don't have time to like scour the internet for topics, I always like to pull from whatever you guys send me. So keep DMing me, send me ideas, and we'll do some more fun stuff coming up. Please support the show. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, turn your post notifications on, send it to somebody that you think would like it. Support us by using any of the products from our sponsors. Click the links in the show notes in the description. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Thanks for watching.